back to Warsaw, where Joe Biden is speaking at that NATO meeting.
And the irony is that one of the last conversations I had with our friend in Russia was I said, you keep asking for the Finlandization of NATO. You're going to get the NATOization of Finland. Well, it happened. Not only are we as strong as we're stronger. And I say to my fellow presidents that I'm honored to be with you here and so many strong NATO allies. And the Secretary General, who I think has done an incredible job for a long time. I rely on his judgment a great deal. You know, the B9 was founded in 2015 after Russia attempted annexation of Crimea. And today, as we approach the one-year anniversary of Russia's further invasion, it's even more important that we continue to stand together. And I think this is proof of just how strongly we feel. That's why I wanted to meet all of you in person here today. As NATO's eastern flank, you're in the front lines of our collective defense, and you know better than anyone what's at stake in this conflict, not just for Ukraine, but for the freedom of democracies throughout Europe and around the world. You know, that's what President Zelensky and I spoke about when I was in Kyiv 2 days ago. And the leaders around this table have repeatedly stepped up to reaffirm our shared commitment to all these values. We provided critical security assistance to Ukraine and critical support to literally millions of refugees. We've helped ensure Ukrainians can access basic services, and together we'll continue our enduring support for Ukraine as they defend their freedom. Over the past year, with your countries around this table providing collective leadership, we've also strengthened NATO. A commitment of the United States to NATO, and I've said it to you many times, I'll say it again, is absolutely clear. Article 5 is a sacred commitment the United States has made. We will defend literally every inch of NATO, every inch of NATO. And this is an important moment. I look forward to the discussion and the next steps we can take together and to keep our alliance strong and to further deter aggression. Because what literally is at stake is not just Ukraine, it's freedom. The idea that over 100,000 forces would invade another country since World War II, nothing like that has happened. Things have changed radically. We have to make sure we change them back. So thank you all very much for allowing me to be with you, and I look forward to our private discussions.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And now I pass the floor to the NATO Secretary General, Mr. Jens Stoltenberg. Please.
Andrei, it's a pleasure to be back in Warsaw to meet with all the B9 heads of state and government, and also with President Biden. And Joe, I would like to say to you that I'm so pleased and so impressed by the outstanding leadership you show, and your visit to Kiev sent a clear message of our steadfast support to Ukraine and America's ironclad commitment to the security of Europe. Let me also thank you for hosting the next NATO summit after Vilnius in the United States. 1 year since the launch of Russia's invasion, President Putin is not preparing for peace. On the contrary, he is preparing for more war. So we must sustain and step up our support for Ukraine. We must give Ukraine what they need to prevail. We don't know when the war will end, but when it does, we need to ensure that history does not repeat itself. We have seen the Russian pattern of aggression over many years. Georgia in 2008, Crimea and Donbass in 2014, and then the full-fledged invasion of Ukraine last year. We cannot allow Russia to continue to chip away at European security. We must break the cycle of Russian aggression. NATO allies have never been more united. We will protect every inch of allied territory based on our Article 5 commitment to defend each other. One for all and all for one. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary General. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the part of the summit open for media. So I kindly ask the media to leave the room, please.
You were listening there to the US President Joe Biden, who was speaking on the final day of his Eastern European tour at a round table meeting of NATO allies with the NATO chief, Jens Stoltenberg. That meeting is now about to get underway. But for more, I'm joined now by our international affairs editor, Angela Diffley, who was listening in to those speeches, those brief comments there in Warsaw. And now, Angela, presumably these are going to be some of Joe Biden's final remarks that he makes at the tail end of his rapid stop-offs in Kyiv and in Warsaw. And as we might expect, he has underlined once again that Washington stands shoulder to shoulder with Kyiv.
Yes, and whilst yesterday's speech in Poland was very much big picture stuff, democracy versus autocracy, Washington's point of view, this is about reality on the ground. And these countries, either bordering Ukraine, in Poland's case, bordering Russia, in some of these countries' cases, are genuinely very, very concerned, particularly the eastern parts of their countries, which directly border Russia often. They are very, very concerned about their national security, particularly after the announcement yesterday by Putin that the New START treaty, that Russia is suspending its participation in that. What they want is NATO troops on the ground now, so that should anything happen, they are in a position of readiness. Because it's all very well invoking Article 5, but it takes a while to respond to any aggression. And they are genuinely very, very worried about any Russian aggression. So that is their position. They want NATO troops. They want fighter jets as well, which Biden has already said are unlikely to be delivered, certainly to Ukraine. It is interesting to note at this meeting that although those 9 countries on the eastern flank of NATO, that is what this meeting is, it's called the Bucharest 9, although those countries were all there, there was no European Union representative present, which in itself is telling. This is all about NATO security guarantees.
Now, Angela, we also heard there from the Romanian president, and the other person speaking very briefly at the end of that quick press conference was the NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg.
Yes, and he talked about Georgia and the annexation of Crimea in 2014. The annexation in Crimea in 2014 was when this Bucharest 9 group was formed. And arguably, had NATO acted differently at the time, then the situation today with Ukraine might not be happening. At the time, the Bucharest 9 expressed their concerns. They were worried. Not very much was done about the Russian annexation of Crimea. And here we are, nearly 9 years on, and these are the consequences in many views. The other thing he talked about was how NATO has never been stronger. That is certainly the case. It has certainly been strengthened by this Russian invasion into Ukraine. It is interesting to note, though, that amongst those 9 members there, the Bucharest 9, is Hungary, which is a bit of an outlier. Hungary, the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, is certainly not unfriendly towards Putin. He rarely criticizes Putin, and Hungary would like this thing to be sorted out with a rapid ceasefire and peace negotiations. The Hungarian president leadership is very uncomfortable with this. They feel a lot more affinity with Putin than many of those other countries on the eastern flank. They also have not yet ratified Sweden and Finland's accession talks to NATO. Apart from Turkey, Hungary is the only other country not yet to have ratified. So there's a little dissidence in that group of 9, but broadly, of course, they are all on the same page.
Okay, Angela Diffley, thank you very much for that insight.